Hello, my name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. Once again, this is a video analysis, not a shoutcast. I will be spoiling plenty instances throughout the game when I use it to point out things to look at in terms of analysis. Primarily, I'll be looking at macro level play, team compositions in particular, as well as the win conditions for teams and how they do not, and should pull these off throughout the game. I'll also be looking at map rotations, vision control, objective control, as well as occasionally at individual matchups, item choices, and individual play when it's paramount to the win or loss of a team. This match we have Samsung Blue against OMG. This is their first match in the group stages. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into picks and bans. Once again, we see Samsung Blue banning out Zillion and Alistar. They have been banning this out every game, no matter what side they're on. They really don't like these champions. So other teams at this point have taken note of it and just don't ban them on the purple side and let Samsung Blue ban them out. On OMG's side, we see Zed being targeted, as well as Maokai. Samsung Blue finish off with Rise. This sort of removes the trifecta from the top lane, leaving up just a Rumble. The final ban is also going to be targeted at Dade, being a Twisted Fate. We don't see him playing too often, but we know that he does play it, and OMG just don't want to deal with it. This leaves up Lee Sin and Kha'Zix, so Samsung Blue will end up grabbing Lee Sin off the first rotation. OMG will pick up Kayle and Tristana next. Going wants to secure his top laner, and while there are other choices such as Rumble, Aurelia, it's pretty safe for him to pick the top laner at this point. The Tristana pick from OMG is also very generic, but it does set OMG up for moving into a late game composition, especially with this Kayle pickup. SSB should be pretty certain that OMG are going to have a more late game scaling team composition. This means that they can have their options of looking for a very strong early split push, for looking for siege and poke compositions, or for looking for something that's really strong in the mid game. As we'll find out, Samsung Blue end up picking Rumble and Nami. This lets OMG know that Samsung Blue are looking for a strong mid game team composition. We have Lee Sin, who's good in the early game and in the mid game. Rumble, who we all know is very strong in the mid game, especially at Dragon and in jungle corridors. And we see Nami, who's just a very solid support all around. By picking up Nami, it kind of also removes a disengage tool from OMG, as Nami is a good champion to use against Rumble. And Rumble ultimates, Nami ultimates as well, preventing Samsung Blue's team from chasing, and then allows time for her team to disengage outside of Rumble's ultimate. So this is sort of a denial pick while still being very strong overall, and it will work very well into Samsung Blue's final picks. On OMG's side, we do see the Kha'Zix being picked up. It looks like they want to counterpick the mid lane. One thing that OMG should be noting at this point is that Yasuo is up. Samsung Blue already have 2 knockups on their team, and so they should have some inkling that Samsung Blue will pick up Yasuo. This means they can either deny it or seek to counterpick it. If they deny it, picking up Thresh would be a great choice. That would allow him to have some knockup. They also could have then picked Jarvan later. But they do end up going with Kha'Zix and Thresh, Kha'Zix being the second premier jungler behind Lee Sin, and Thresh being an all-around very solid support. I'm not particularly fond of Thresh Tristana. I feel that the lane is kind of weak, particularly because Tristana can't all-in when Thresh gets his hooks. She doesn't have really strong trade either. Thresh gets a hook into a flay. Tristana can only provide some minor auto attack damage. This is a little bit negated by the fact that Samsung Blue pick up this Kog'Maw. So now you have two champions who have weak early games. So there's no real strong 2v2 lane. There can be a little bit of outplay, who gets a bubble, who gets the hook, that they're able to provide damage. Nami later on, once Kog'Maw gets some decent range on his level 3 W, can provide the slow, you get some free harass that way. But generally, neither lane is really a bully lane, so they're both pretty even picks. And this becomes important in this match. So on Samsung Blue's side, we see the Yasuo picked up with the Kog'Maw, and now we have a really strong mid-game focused team with the late game back pocket of Kog'Maw on Samsung Blue's side, as well as Yasuo scaling really well. Yasuo fits well with the Lee Sin. Lee Sin, Yasuo, we all know, is a very strong combo. Very easy to get kills. Lee Sin simply goes in, gets his kick. He has several options: landing Sonic Wave, dashing to a ward, flashing, and then Yasuo follows up with his ultimate. Generally, that's enough damage to kill any one person, unless they're a tank. On OMG's side, the final pickup is Ahri. Ahri is a fairly solid pick against Yasuo. She'll be able to farm easily, safely. She has the charm if Yasuo tries to go all in. She has the dashes to work around his ultimate, or not his ultimate, I'm sorry, his wind wall. But she's still going to lose significant portions of her damage to wind wall, no matter what she does. But she's not going to lose everything. So it's a lot of heavy skill on her to correctly maneuver and correctly use her charm to deny Yasuo. Not necessarily the champion I really like to fight Yasuo. One of my favorites is to fight against him is Ziggs. This would also give OMG a lot of wave clear to scale into the late game, which they need to do. But the Ahri pick works just as well, while providing pick potential to combo with Thresh. So the Ahri pick works really well in this situation. So I don't find any qualms with it. I think both teams are fairly solid. OMG is definitely looking more towards the late game, so they're the ones who kind of have to survive, make sure they don't get caught out, and do what they can to find these trades, objective trades, rather than fighting for them. So after the generalization, let's take a look at OMG's team. It is pretty easy to decipher. We got two very high scaling late game champions in Kayle and Tristana, and then we also have a very well scaling jungler in Kha'Zix. So there's three champions on OMG that are really going to start to outscale their opponents around the 30-35 minute mark. At the level 1, this is really no point for Kayle to be up here. I'm not sure exactly what he's looking to do aside from get a couple harassment hits, and it comes back to bite him in the face. His ward doesn't need to have been that deep. It's much safer to get the ward over the wall. You could have seen the blue a little bit farther out. Anyways, whatever he did, there was no need for him to be that far out, and it really hampers OMG because it gives first blood to Lee Sin, who junglers are the only champion who can really benefit from that early first blood. This allows him to go back to base, pick up a Spirit Stone right away. With a Spirit Stone, he's going to be able to clear his jungle even faster. This makes him much stronger early game threat. It's a huge boon for Samsung Blue. Maybe because of this, OMG initiate the lane swap. I don't really feel that they should have initiated a lane swap. Like I said, the bot lanes are on roughly even footing, and they should have just duped it out. Kayle really needs items, needs them way more than Rumble does, and needs a lot more of them. Rumble hits probably his largest spike with 2,500 gold and the double M-Pen items, whereas Kayle needs that just for his Gnasher's Tooth, and then after his Gnasher's Tooth, he really needs a second item before he can start to be considered a full-on threat. So OMG's team, with this late scaling composition, just need to survive. They need to get solid lanes, get good CS and EXP, and just keep moving through the game without falling too far behind. They'll eventually outscale Samsung Blue's team. And then when the late game, they can take the fights to them and win. Especially since Samsung Blue's team is lacking any sort of tank. They have Lee Sin for the front line. Both compositions are running sort of heavy threat teams rather than any sort of defensive teams. You have both sides have 3 threats plus a sort of DPS focused jungler who might pick up some tanky items. Once OMG get ahead in terms of scaling and damage, they'll be able to blow apart Samsung Blue's team and survive through the Rumble ultimate, which is going to be the most deadly situation. Kayle with a with a Runan's Hurricane is going to be very strong against Samsung Blue's team, as they have 3 weak frontliners in Lee Sin, Yasuo, and Rumble, so he'll be able to pump out a lot of damage onto them. This will let Kha'Zix and Tristana get to their resets very early. The other option is for Kayle to pick up a Death Cap after Nashor's Tooth. This gives him high burst to get those resets for Tristana and Kha'Zix. Either way, it would work out very well, but he has to get to those items. This is why this lane swap kind of doesn't work out for OMG's side, as they're trading a semi-even bot lane for a semi-even bot lane and semi-even top lane for the free bot lanes, but completely denying the champion that needs gold. A level 6 Rumble with just boots is going to be stronger than a level 6 Kayle with boots by far. So this is why I don't like the lane swap at the start. Anyways, OMG with this late game scaling need to be able to survive their lanes. They need to be able to survive the mid game. The biggest problem is going to be at these dragons with the Rumble. They can look for picks with Ahri and Thresh, but the later they can draw this game out, the better. So if they're able to survive until about the 35-40 minute mark, then OMG should have the win. They can facilitate reaching this point with Ahri and Thresh, 2 strong pick champions. During the mid game, they can use these 2 to look for opportunities to catch somebody out in their jungle and Samsung Blue's jungle, catch somebody in rotation towards the dragon, find an option with them to get the CC chain and get a kill. This could be facilitated by Ahri picking up a Deathfire's Grass so that she's able to assassinate a target, but it might just be better for her to go that Athene's Death Cap, get out a lot of charms, be able to wave clear excessively, as OMG are really going to need to be able to wave clear for defensive purposes. Either way, the options are there. We do see her going Seeker's Arm Guard. It's not a bad choice either, going a little defensively. But would have preferred to have seen her have some more offensive focus first off, though. So that's OMG's team. To facilitate this, drag out the laning phase as much as possible. Keep good wards on Dragon. When you know that Samsung Blue are going to head towards Dragon, you could have one of 2 choices. The first choice is to ignore the Dragon and focus on an objective. Trade top for Dragon, trade middle turret for Dragon. Be prepared to sacrifice Dragon, but be prepared to take something for it. The other choice is to not necessarily fight for it, but to look for picks with Thresh and Ahri near there, as Samsung Blue are trying to get into Dragon, throw out the hooks, throw out the charm, look to get a catch, and then get the damage onto that target. You have to be very wary of fully committing to the fight. Dragon's an area in which we know Rumble is very strong, particularly in the corridors, so when you're searching for these catches with Ahri and Thresh, make sure you're not running back defensively into one of the corridors, as this will really get your team in trouble. So that's OMG's team. On Samsung Blue's side, we see a very mid-game heavy focused team, particularly with Rumble, Lee Sin, and Yasuo. Generally, Yasuo is more of a late game champion on his own, with some good mid game power. But when you add in knockup synergy to Yasuo, he really starts to shine in the mid game. Particularly with Lee Sin, it's very easy for them to get a combo. Especially if Yasuo is able to get his knockup first, Lee Sin gets in the queue to the kick. There's a lot of assassination potential with the executes, with just the pure burst damage that they put out. So there's with Yasuo and Lee Sin, that's one way Samsung Blue can facilitate an early gold lead in the mid game. As soon as they're both level 6, start looking for picks in the jungle of OMG, look for rotational mistakes, even just straight up gank the middle lane for a quick kill onto Ahri, especially while her ultimate is down, like right now. It's a great option for them to get kills and build Yasuo into a carry potential in the mid game. The other option for Samsung Blue's team is in this Rumble pick. He's very strong, as we all know, in the mid game, and able to take objective control very easily. Use him as soon as he hits level 6 and level 11 to take the first and second dragons. Work it into the third dragon as well. Just anytime dragon's coming up, have Rumble be there for the claim. It's pretty simple. Most players have seen his strength in those small corridors. As we see, however, Samsung Blue have taken the second dragon without any contestation from OMG, without any trades. They will end up taking this top turret. They didn't even need Rumble for that second dragon. They got the kill with the timer on to Kayle. And this is another big thing why I think the lanes should have been standard lanes instead of swaps. They would have had more dragon control, been able to draw it out longer if you let Rumble go for that level 6 ultimate at the dragon using his teleport. OMG's team could just simply back off with their leaps. Then Kayle could have taken the top turret in trade with his very fast push ability. As we see, both of them are very, very denied in this game. But as stated before, Kayle is the one who needs the items, whereas Rumble does not. So Samsung Blue's team, they have this large mid-game power spike in Yasuo Lee Sin combo with Nami to facilitate Yasuo ultimates, and with Rumble and just the power that he brings early on. There's good synergy in a couple of champions. Even Nami works well with Rumble, getting the knock-up in the bubbles when he uses his equalizer. At one point in the game, we will see a good equalizer into a Nami ultimate into a Yasuo ult that really traps Tristana and Thresh in the equalizer damage. As it gets into the late game, Samsung Blue's team has two options. They can just be ahead of OMG and win the 5v5 fights, particularly if Kog'Maw is reaching his hyper carry status. Yasuo also reaches hyper carry status, becomes very strong. If Samsung Blue are having a hard time in the 5v5s, if they think they can't win it, they can send Yasuo on his own to split push. He's the strongest split push champion in the game. He's going to do very well, especially if Lee Sin is nearby to back him up. And then Kog'Maw, Nami, and Rumble can focus on sort of wave clearing and defending turrets. And while they're not very strong at it, OMG don't have good poke or siege ability either. So this is sort of the counterpoint to that. So these are the options that both teams have in their win conditions. And right now, at the start, we see both of them sort of facilitating them. Samsung Blue has taken dragons. They've gotten CS leads. They're doing everything to keep this game, the gold lead, in their favor, as well as having shut down both top laners for the better trade on their part, and giving them the much stronger mid game. OMG have also done well. They've found their picks, they found their dives, they're sort of bypassing Trist's weak stage. They've almost got Tristana to an Infinity Edge, but Kog'Maw's already at his Trinity Force as well. So, still going in favor of Samsung Blue in this early game, but OMG are making it past, or not making it past, but making it well into the mid game. Better than if they weren't getting these kills and whatnot, and turrets and trades. The biggest downfall for OMG side is how low they've let Kayle be kept down, and the fact that they've given up 2 dragons without response. So right now we're going to see a lot of strength on Samsung Blue's side. As stated before, Rumble's really strong. Soon he'll be getting into his sword boots. Yasuo has his static shiv, and Kog'Maw has his Trinity Force. This is a really big power spike opportunity for Samsung Blue, and they should use it to control this next dragon. That means OMG have to decide what they're going to do about it. Are they going to, say, go for a push on top lane, 3-man the tier 2 turret? Are they going to prepare to push middle as 5 when Samsung Blue try and go take the dragon? Or are they going to contest it, looking for picks with Ahri and Thresh? They need a solid plan on what they want to do. Right now, they should be pushing 3-man in this bottom lane. Kha'Zix, Thresh, and Tristana could probably head towards this tier 2 turret. The moment they saw the Rumble up top with Lee Sin, and all 3 of them were bottom, they knew exactly where Samsung Blue's team was, and they could have taken this advantage and pushed it into a turret. Instead, they don't even get any damage onto it. They could have done so much more with that opportunity. So where do we go from here? For Samsung Blue, they're going to want to contest. They're going to want to contest this next dragon for sure. They have the power spikes. They have level 11 on Yasuo now. They've got their Trinity Force. Rumble has his Haunting Guise. He doesn't quite have level 11 ultimate. He's still several levels off, but he still has his ultimate, and that makes it strong. On OMG's side, we still don't see a Nashor's Tooth onto Kayle, so he's still very weak. This means Rumble's fairly ahead of him. So Samsung Blue should really be looking for that. The other thing to note is that since Ahri did go Zhonya's Hourglass, she's really lacking in power that she could have. Say if she grabbed Death Cap or Deathfire's Grasp. But once again, we see teams not reacting to dragon spawns. Instead of fighting for dragon when Samsung Blue's ahead, they're let it go and give it up to OMG. So this is essentially the second dragon that's gone without a fight when it should have been fought for, or gone without a trade. So now that OMG have taken that dragon, it's very good for them. They need to back off, focus on wave clear, make sure they don't get caught out. Just continue to scale up with Kayle and Tristana. There's no need for them to go try and make plays, as they're more than likely going to lose out on those plays. They could send Ahri and Thresh to try and take control of jungle. Right now, since Samsung Blue are looking at the bottom jungle, it would be paramount for them to go ward sweeping to get up their own wards in their blue side, and to look for an opportunity to get a nice pick. Samsung Blue, on the other hand, kind of need to make a move. It would probably be best to go for this middle turret. However, since Rumble's ultimate is down, it makes it a little bit harder. We do see a great Lee Sin play, however. and Samsung Blue are able to force down this sort of defensive wall of OMG. And that's one of the reasons why I was saying that OMG needed to get wards into their jungle, and they should have moved there with Ahri and Thresh, who could be very defensive. It's because OMG have to be worried about this flank. This is the power of Lee Sin Yasuo. If there was any other combination, that play would not have worked, because there wouldn't have been the double CC. There wouldn't have been that huge just burst of damage and the shields on Yasuo and whatnot. We see a common mistake by Tristana happening. It's when they're going for the kill, they could just take one or two more shots instead of using that ultimate. And we see Tristana misses out on the kill on Yasuo, as well as getting herself killed because now she doesn't have a reset for escape. So Samsung Blue just very well made a strong play with their mid-game power. They even didn't have Rumble Ultimate. If they had Rumble Ultimate in that situation, it would have gone even better for them. And this is what OMG need to avoid. They do it by properly warding. You can't be defensive at a turret if you're not watching your flanks. So as we're moving in, the next big spot in the match is going to be Dragon. Both sides should start to prep for it, and OMG once again need to decide how they're going to play it out. Do they want to ignore it and go for another objective, or do they want to try and get catches with Ahri and Thresh? So we'll talk a little bit about individual matchups while we're waiting. Rumble against Kayle is a pretty interesting match. Neither one's, I guess, how to say this, Kayle has a lot of bully potential against Rumble early on, getting the auto attack in, the slows and the speed ups and whatnot. But the problem is that Flame Spitter will reach Rumble if Rumble, or will reach Kayle if Kayle is auto attacking Rumble. So there's lots of trade damage that goes on. On the flip side, Kayle does have a heal, so if he properly manages his HP, making a couple hits with his Q and his auto attacks and then just backing up, he can take the lead against Rumble over time. As the match continues, Rumble's going to gain much stronger all-in power because he has more damage up front, as well as having much smaller item spikes. Getting the double magic pen items are much stronger than Nashor's Tooth is going to be for Kayle. Because of this gold disadvantage in terms of item spiking, Kayle runs into a hard time around levels 8 or 9. He is able to use his intervention to block out Rumble Ultimate, but that means he has to quickly move off of it and then deal with the Flame Spitter and Electro Harpoons of Rumble. So it's a rough matchup for Kayle later on, but in the beginning he's fine. And even later on, he's still pretty safe in the 1v1 and can wave clear very fast, take out the creeps, back off. He shouldn't be looking to fight Rumble unless he's at an HP advantage, unless he feels that he can really outplay with his movement speed abilities, which he can. In the even skill though, just look at it as a farm matchup and have Kayle do his best to get into his late game items. So as we get to this next dragon, we're going to see OMG start to take vision control. Rumble's up top. He's almost level 11, so that's why Samsung Blue haven't brought him in yet, but he does have his teleport, so it's fine. When Kayle gets here, we see OMG, they go start to clear out. The dragon, they do miss this ward, which is pretty important. Would have been nice if Kayle had brought a pink instead of that green ward. Just one more thing for them to help. Maybe OMG could have taken it. Now that Rumble's level 11, OMG are forced to back off. And OMG can look for picks here. But here's the big problem. OMG run up through the small corridor when Rumble ultimates instead of running to the left. And here's where we see the Equalizer, Nami ultimate, and Yasuo ultimate all come into play to create massive damage. This is just very bad for OMG to have even been in that position. They need to spread out. They should have been fully in the river, sort of as a front line of scrimmage, rather than in this line that Rumble can completely deny and back off. OMG didn't properly respect the damage that he was going to bring, didn't properly respect the combo. And then when they're trying to escape, Thresh and Kayle get themselves killed trying to save Ahri. Rumble gets 3 kills. And this is the big turning point of this game. Samsung Blue are able to get 4 for 1 and then get the tier 2 turret on the bot lane. It's a huge spike in items for both sides, as well as a huge denial of the dragon. Here we're going to see it again. As soon as Ahri got exhausted, OMG should have backed off. And her using that dash right there, she could have saved it. There was no need for her to rush that dash, and it gets her into trouble. So while OMG did one of the things that they could have done at Dragon, which is look for picks, they did it in such a way that their team wasn't ready. Ahri dashing in and looking in for the charm isn't going to kill anybody if she's not running that Deathfire's Grasp, especially because she got exhausted. It completely denied her. It was just a really bad decision for her to try and dash in essentially 1v5. They need to... One of the big things is when you're using these catch champions with the ability to fish for targets, is you have to make sure to not get ahead of your team. You want to throw out your charm without dashing forward, and then use your dashes defensively, not offensively. So after this fight, we see a very solid gold lead on Samsung Blue's side, about 7,000 gold. And this is essentially the danger point for OMG. They no longer can fight 5v5 team fights. They have to wait until the late game to where Tristana and Kayle can carry. But with how far behind Kayle is, it's going to take him another 15 minutes before he's really a threat in this game. It's probably going to be even later because he's not getting much CS as Tristana and Ahri are taking it. Though Tristana is at a good point with her 2 items, and E1 more and she'll start to be a real threat. Since there's no front line of OMG, she's very vulnerable. If you're running a triple threat composition, you have to get ahead, you can't fall behind. And since Samsung Blue are also running a triple threat composition, this just compounds the issue. With Ahri picking up a Deathfire's Grasp, that's an okay pickup. I'm not particularly fond of going from one to the other, except in certain compositions. When Fnatic used it, it was a fine pickup, because they had this composition that was going to catch one target with a CC and just absolutely blow them up. In this one, I probably would have preferred to have seen a death cap. That way, Ahri can have some better wave clear. She's not so inclined to dash in for these kills, but rather looking for the catches. Also on OMG's side, we see Kha'Zix picking up a Sightstone. Once again, I don't like Sightstones on certain junglers. Kha'Zix can grab a Sightstone, but if you're going to grab a Sightstone on Kha'Zix, you probably want to look to become some heavy utility based jungler, picking up Merc Treads to deal with CC, get some tanky items as well. Don't build a Brutalizer. You want to go for some survivability to go with it. You're really hampering your ability to go in and get the resets and assassinations on Kha'Zix by losing out on this potential pickaxe worth of gold on the Sightstone. If you are ahead though, grabbing the sight stone is still fine because you are ahead and then it gives you more control. When playing from behind though, you'd would rather have the combat stats than the vision. So with this gold lead that Samsung Blue now have, they can easily start to bully turrets, and we see them doing that. OMG really can't fight them. And as said before, the difference between Kale and Rumble is so big simply because of base spells that it's almost like Kale is half a champion at the moment. This just accentuates the lead of Samsung Blue side. So what could OMG have done in this game? They let 2 early dragons go for free without getting trades, and they really needed to get these trades going. They needed to recognize that they were going to be much weaker at dragon and look for opportunities to capitalize elsewhere on the map when SSB went to do them. The other time they really messed up was in that 4th dragon with the Rumble Ultimate. They came at Samsung Blue's team from a very disorganized position. Ari leaps in front of her team, though she does get the charm. It doesn't end up turning into much because she has no follow-up. They also sit at the corridor area where Rumble is able to get a great ultimate that zones them off and that gets them trapped onto the equalizer. If OMG wanted to contest that, they really, like I said before, needed to use the river so that they had more open area rather than coming through that jungle corridor. Those two things really hampered OMG's ability to scale into the late game, as it gave Samsung Blue an opportunity to get free gold, as well as a very huge spike in kills at that 4th dragon rather. The other part of it would have been the early game, not letting Kale get so far behind, playing the standard lanes, and just dealing with the semi-even matchups. Right there, to point out a little individual misplay, Kale should have used his heal on himself. That would have given him the move speed to get in range to slow down Rumble. By using his heal on Tristana, he essentially let Rumble get away. So that's essentially the game. Samsung Blue are going to slowly move this into a win. They just have more power than OMG, and all this game is about raw power. Both sides bringing in triple threat compositions and junglers who are more focused on fighting and damage than they are on utility tank. From Samsung Blue side, we see a good Aegis and Mikhail's Crucible. I really like it. The Mikhail's Crucible first was a great pickup, useful against Ahri and Thresh. Really the only two ways that OMG would be able to find a way back into this game with picks. The Locket just coming in is a great item as well against the Kale and Ahri. And here again we see OMG are fighting in this corridor. Even though they catch Rumble out and they almost kill him, he's able to get off his ultimate. His ultimate does half HP damage to 3 people because there's no way for them to escape in such a small area. This allows Samsung Blue to come in and clean up, and now they have a free window into the base of OMG. This is like the 3rd or 4th time in this match that OMG have fought Rumble in tiny places, and it's really destroyed them in this match. So that's something to take away from this game. It seems pretty standard and something most teams should know, but sometimes it just gets forgotten, the amount of damage that Rumble's ultimate is able to provide in these small areas. So you have to fight him in open areas. And never wait to use your escape skills. As soon as Rumble ultimate goes down, leap out, disengage, wait for it to run out, and then return. If you can escape Rumble's ultimate without fighting the rest of his team, then you can turn around once it's down, once you're out of it, regroup, and then focus down the opponent. With Samsung Blue having 2 inhibitors down and Baron, this is essentially the end of the game, and we all know how, most of us know how this works out. Samsung Blue group top, push in towards the turret. Soon as the super creeps come into the waves, then they just wait for it and take the final inhibitor. We do see Samsung Blue actually not doing this, and they waste a good portion of time. Yasuo and Rebel get caught, but Samsung Blue are able to return this with 2 kills as well. Now as three-man squad, they do have the ability to just take the base themselves, since Kog'Maw is that much stronger at this point, and they have he has solid protection from Lee Sin and Nami. So this is essentially, this is the game as we can see. So what's there to take away from this game? 2 things, and I already mentioned them already, to really take away. Watch your positioning against Rumble. OMG fight him 3 times in small areas, and it comes back to bite them. Even when they get the catch twice, he's able to lay down his ultimate before he dies. And that's all Rumble really needs to do. It's his strongest point, is getting down that ultimate. And it allowed his team to collapse and win the team fights even when he got caught. The other thing to take away is have a solid plan of what to do when the other team takes Dragon. When you know you are the weaker team, just be prepared for it. Keep a ward out when they go to see it. If you can delay them with somebody, go ahead and delay them from long range, such as Ari can throw out her charms and her Orb of Deception and then use her dash defensively to escape. So you can buy yourself an extra maybe 5 to 10 seconds and then take something elsewhere on the map. Take the mid turret with your ADC support. Take the top lane with them as well and your top laner. Find some way to get some trade so you don't fall so far behind. So those are the 2 big things. Also, once again, note how the level 1 played out with the 2v1 swaps with Kayle getting caught. And that's essentially it. Beware of late game compositions that lack solid poke or wave clear. OMG's team had decent wave clear, but they forgot to keep up the wards on the side. This let Samsung Blue get in with Lee Sin for some solid Yasuo synergy. And they were able to dive the mid turret and get some more lead and keep up their gold advantage. So that's it. As with every match, the notes for this can be found below, as well as a link to the portal page for all of my 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis and notes. I'm Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and thanks for watching.